Hello. This is part of a stream I did at some point in the past, and in it, I went into detail about how I figured out that I'm autistic and the journey to that point as well. I want to do more content about autism. I'm someone that believes self diagnoses are 100% valid. If you've lived your entire life, at some point, it's just obvious. And I'm not going to argue with anyone about that, but that's neither here nor there. I just wanted to talk about how I figured it out for myself and what I'm doing now that I have. If you want to see more stuff like this in the future, please don't forget to like and subscribe. I want to do all kinds of different stuff. If you look over my channel, you'll see that I've tried all kinds of stuff. And I want to keep doing all of it. Just also this, but more of it. And for that, all I have to do is crush it up and put it in a capsule. And that's your supplement. So that's really cool. I do have to do lab tests to certify the purity of the supplements I will be making, but that's not a big deal. That's okay. I want that to be the case because that would mean, if it weren't, that would mean God knows what I've taken over the years because I've experimented with all kinds of health supplements just to try to figure out what the heck is wrong with me. Turns out I'm autistic. It wasn't a nutritional deficit that was causing a lot of my issues. It was just my brain doesn't work the same way that neurotypical people's brain works. And you can hear it in the name neurotypical, typical. And I am neurodivergent, divergent. It's very important words there. That means, pretty obvious, I diverge from the typical brain that people in society have. So for years, it was just like, why is there so much friction every time I try to do anything? It got bad. I like I can probably go more into detail one day on this. A lot of it is kind of hard to talk about. And after realizing that, I don't want to say problem, the thing that was happening and what was causing the friction was an autistic brain rubbing up against a neurotypical brain. And both of us would walk away like, what the hell is wrong with that person? So that didn't do me no favors at any point in my life. Um, Now that I know I'm autistic, it's just like, oh, okay. It's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. That explains a lot. I'm really happy that I know that now. Wish I would have known a little bit sooner, but that's fine. That genuinely is fine. I know now. That's what matters. What else? I don't know. I don't know. I always get so emotional when I talk about autism. So, and that kind of pushes everything in my brain out and it's just like, hey, focus on this. It's like I've been focusing on it for 34 years. I don't need to focus on it anymore. But that's just kind of part of it, like rumination, thought looping, and stuff. Uh, and there's a ton of stuff that I used to think was ADHD, but turns out it's autism. Aut- it's autism. Um, like hypersensitivity, stuff like that. I thought that was ADHD. No, not at all. I'm not going to say it never happens with people that have ADHD, But in my case, it wasn't the case. So, what I've been kind of focusing on recently is trying to divide the different personality quirks, I guess you could call it, and just different things inside of my life that is like, okay, which one is it? Who's the culprit? Is that the ADHD or is that the autism? And sorting that out has been very interesting. I'll let you know when I figure it out because I still don't know most of the time. Sometimes it's like, no, that's ADHD for sure. A lot of the autistic traits really come out with communication, and I thought it was the ADHD making it making it difficult for me to communicate. Sorry, but no, it wasn't. It was the autism. And now that I know that, it's painfully obvious. That's kind of like one of the things about figuring it out that it's like, oh, that makes sense now. Like every day, there's something else I'll think about that I'm like, yeah, 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 obviously. Why didn't anyone tell me? Because now it's like painfully obvious. But up until I was 33, it was just a question. And it was a question I asked myself constantly. I would say starting in my early 20s, maybe 19 or 20 years old, whenever I really got foisted into the world and had to really deal with life. I moved out of my parents' house when I was like 15. They were going through a divorce and stuff, and I was I was like, I don't know how to describe it, but I wasn't great. I wasn't a great person. I wasn't bad. I was a drug addict. That's what it was. So, getting emotional. I was th- I was thrust into the world at a very young age, but I was so high that communication was really the last thing on my mind. So I just wasn't seeing all of the friction that was happening. Once I turned 19, I moved to Texas. I lived with family for maybe 2 months, if that. And then I got my own place, got a job in a factory. Clayton Homes, that is to this day the most difficult job I have ever had. That job is so hard. And I think I was getting paid $11 an hour. That's ridiculous. And from what I understand, they're still not paying well at all. It was an easy job to get. And I went from that to truck driving. So that'll that'll learn ya. And so I always ask the question, am I autistic? All of my adult life, whenever I was a teenager slash kid, I probably didn't even know what it was in the first place. Sorry, sometimes I have to take a very long pause to allow the emotions to pass. I think I should be good right now. Let me wipe my eyes. So working at Clayton Homes, I really started asking, like, am I autistic? And I went from that to truck driving. So I was alone pretty much 95% of the time. So I wasn't communicating with anyone. So the questions died down. It would still pop up every once in a while, especially when I would try to start dating. It's a nightmare for me personally. Um, I wish it wasn't. And then I did get a girlfriend. I'm not going to say anything about that. And that was in 2017, late 2017. And we were together for about 2 years. And I know she was autistic. She refused to get an evaluation, and that's fine. Honestly, that's cool. That's okay. But it was, to me, it was just obvious. And I was constantly seeing things that was like, huh, I do that. Hmm, weird. So the questions began again. And we broke up in like December of 2019. No, we broke up in February of 2020. You see where this is going, right? So I had nothing but time to ask questions. I should have mentioned, I quit truck driving in 2019, not December. I want to say around July or August. And the reason I quit was because I wanted to spend more time with my girlfriend. We've been broken up, like I said, since around February 2020. So I wasn't in trucking anymore. I was working at a company called Starship, and it was at the UTD campus, which is also where I lived. My girlfriend at the time was getting her PhD or working on her dissertation at the UTD campus and also doing some teaching gigs and stuff like that. And I just happened to find a gig where I could work at the campus as well. So that was nice. COVID happened, lost that job. Everybody in the company got laid off. And then I got the unemployment expansion, which was insane. I mean, it was awesome. I'm not complaining. Don't get it twisted. It was a lot of money though. Like $1,400 a week for 2 years. Like at some point, I was like, is this ever going to end? Like, can I retire? It was so cool. It was awesome. I like it really was. So I didn't get another job for a really long time until late 20 no, March 2023. I started working up at Bucky's, and then the questions started again. It's like, am I autistic? And eventually it got to the point where no question. There was no doubt. I'm autistic. I just am. When I was a kid in the 90s, I was born in 1991 and I got diagnosed with ADHD in the 90s. Not as a little kid, probably about 10, so it might have been 2001, maybe. Um, the main point I bring that up is because back then, you could not diagnose autism and ADHD in one person. That just wasn't a thing. And I remember going through so many tests and so many evaluations that other people who got diagnosed with ADHD just were like, what? No, my mom went to the doctor and got Adderall for me. And I'm sitting here like, I feel like I had to, go through months of testing. And now that I have more understanding, I now believe that it was because the doctors were probably like, what do we do? Do we give them the autism or do we give them the ADHD? Because we can't do both. Back then, you couldn't do both. It wasn't like one of those, oh, they just didn't really do it. No, you couldn't. So eventually, this is all just memories. So from a long time ago, 2 decades ago, if not more, definitely more. Because 2 decades ago, I would have been 14. So definitely more than 2 decades ago. Um, and they settled on ADHD, I guess. Like, I guess. I don't really know. Well, I know that I got diagnosed with ADHD, but I don't know if the process and the evaluations took so long because they were trying to figure out which one they should apply to me. I think that's what was going on. And if I have the correct understanding of autism and the public's knowledge of it, they, even if the doctors were like, no, this kid is way more autistic than ADHD, they could have seen that as disparaging. Like, they didn't want to give me that diagnosis because it could hurt me in the future. They were wrong, and I don't even know if that was the deal. I cannot make that clear enough. These are old memories mixed with some speculation, okay? I do believe that's what the deal was. In my opinion, I believe it would have been better just to say, kid's autistic, good luck. That would have been so much better than saying, kid has ADHD, here's some amphetamine tablets, go away. Which I didn't even take, by the way. They were given to me. I didn't take them. I would go spit them in the toilet, flush them down the toilet. I don't know why. Honestly, I don't know why. Probably the autism. Now that I think about it. So that's my theory. Um, Feels good to get that off my chest. And I'm going to stop the stream. Have a nice day.